Hi, everybody. I'm Bill Whittle here with Steve Green and Scott Ott, and this is your Right Angle Show. Today, guys, I would like to talk about a couple of twits that I saw on Twitter. One of them, both of us coming from our friend Instapundit, with our awesome original patron, the Instapundit himself, Glenn Reynolds, currently edited by one of the three of us, and we'll leave it up to you to see if you can figure out which one it is. In any event, yes. Couple of twits on Twitter, and here's one of them. One of them is from a Melissa Barnett, and here's what she tweets. This week, dumpsters were filled with books that should have left decades ago at TWPS schools and replaced with engaging, relevant, culturally diverse literature. Steve, they showed a couple of big dumpsters in the twit, and they were able to determine that among those books were Slaughterhouse-Five, Pride and Prejudice, Grapes of Wrath, Hiroshima, 1984. And here's a teacher who is not only proud that these books are being thrown, because, Steve, I guess this is what I'd like you to address on this one. We know the term shelf life. We thought it came from grocery stores, but no, it turns out it's a book. It's a book term. How old does a book have to be before it's time to be carted out and replaced with new ones? And I'll have a follow-up question for you in a minute.
All right. First, I want to just talk about the elephant in the living room here. Is everybody just going to ignore the fact that Scott did a perfect David Caruso glasses removal there at the beginning of the segment? Are we just going to leave that alone?
I thought that was funny because I thought that was Henry Block from H&R Block.
Until he took the glasses off, I had no idea who it was.
So much to say here. Victor Hugo, my favorite quote of his was, "If a writer wrote only for his day, I would break my pen." And now we have these progressive savages going around and doing the job for him, even though his literature has lasted for all of these years and years and years. And it lasts because it's good. What we're seeing here is the leftist impulse that dates back at least as far as the French Revolution to restore us to year zero, where if we can just ditch enough history, then we can perfect messy humanity and pound all of these square pegs into all of these perfectly progressive round holes. But the first step is always, what can we destroy? What do we have to eliminate? It's history, it's family, it's economy, it's all of these things that take a long time and a lot of sustained effort, not just to build, but to nurture and to keep. It's one thing to remove Kurt Vonnegut from the bookshelves. It's another thing to actually pick him up and read him. When you said Slaughterhouse-Five, my heart sank. My mom made a lot of mistakes as a parent, but one thing she got right was introducing me to Vonnegut at just the right impressionable age. I want to say 13 or 14 years old. And my just almost divine appreciation for the absurd comes in no small part from Slaughterhouse-Five, from The Sirens of Titan, and from one of his, I think, lesser read books, Slapstick. And just
Slapstick was great.
I adore that book. And the idea of removing these books, not just from our shelves, but from our collective consciousness in order to pursue a political goal that would otherwise be unobtainable, it's just sickening. But it is absolutely no different than the left's fascination with tearing down free markets that create the wealth that sustains us, and vice versa, and with tearing down the families that sustain us too. They want to revert us to year zero in order to pound us all down.
One of the Ed Driscoll made the post on Instapundit, and he notices that one of the books being thrown out is 1984. And Ed writes, why keep copies of 1984 on hand? It might remind the kids that they're living it out firsthand. The most terrifying thing in 1984 is when Winston Smith is talking to the guy who's working on the new dictionary, which has 60,000 fewer words than the previous dictionary. We'll get that language all simplified, and then we can all go on with our double plus good lives and not have to worry about thought crimes. Here's my follow-up question for you real quick, Steve. So all of these classic books are going away, but the good news is they're being replaced with engaging, relevant, and culturally diverse literature. Can you name one of those pieces of engaging, relevant, culturally diverse literature?
You know,
I'm just curious.
I'm too old to still be doing that kind of thing. I'm not taking college classes where they're providing me with good things to read. I try and stay fairly up to date. But the thing about literature is, as opposed to just fiction, if I can be kind of snobbish here, is let's say that literature is the stuff that's withstood the test of time. Now, I'm assuming, because I don't think we've lost anything in terms of human potential or human talent, that great literature is being produced today. It just hasn't been established as great literature because it hasn't had a chance to. So let's give it a chance. Let's bring in the new stuff. Let's keep our minds open, please. But let's not discard the great stuff just to make room for a bunch of mediocrities who can't cut it.
I disagree. I think that the stuff that they're replacing these classic books with is just absolute pablum, and I cannot name one, and no one can.
Oh, well, that's why I said the mediocrities. But somewhere, there's got to be some gems in there somewhere. Maybe.
I remember when A Confederacy of Dunces was written posthumously, and that book was instantly hailed as classic literature. So was Catcher in the Rye and all the rest of it. But anyway, I digress. That's my job. Scotty, let's go to you for the second of these two twits on Twitter. This is an expression that I probably should have reversed the order because Steve says it's one of his all-time favorites. We have a tweet here from Adam Trahan, and he's not the villain in this story. He's completely got it. The villain is an online site called The Conversation, and The Conversation made a tweet. And here's what the website The Conversation wrote. It's time to ban climate change denialism in the media. Time to ban an opposing viewpoint, says The Conversation. And Adam Trahan probably wins the internet at least for the day, maybe the week. He may go for the entire year by saying an outlet called The Conversation banning opinions it doesn't like is first ballot Hall of Fame irony. Scott, you want to try and parse that unparsable?
Well, I would, but enough about what I think. How about what I think? I mean, that's the just kind of approach. It's flabbergasting that there are people who actually think that there's danger in expressing what they would view as wrong opinions. So let's just grant, let's just say that their opinion at the editors of The Conversation, their opinion is correct. And that there's another opinion about the same subject that is incorrect. And their solution to this problem is not to make the persuasive case. It's not to engage in dialogue. It's not to bring people along who are ignorant of the fundamentals of the thing that they know to be accurate. No, it's to shut them down, to make sure that there is never any challenge to their plain statement of the thing that they believe is correct, that they've yet to persuade 80% of the world on the basis of their facts. And so I just don't get that. I think everybody makes this mistake. I think people on the right and the left do the same thing in many cases where we just think, well, because you don't understand things the way I do, shut up. But on the right, at least we tend to not just tell them to shut up, but we tend to say, well, you're an idiot. Keep talking. I want to have fun with you. And that's better. But wouldn't it be even better if they said, okay, look, clearly we see things differently. Why don't we engage in a little dialogue, a little colloquy, a little tete-a-tete, a little back and forth, something where we can actually grow and benefit from it. I am finishing up reading right now a book that just came out, written by Associate Supreme Court Justice Neil Gorsuch. And he is frequently talking about the qualities of a good lawyer and the qualities of a good judge. And primary among them that he learned from his first boss, Byron White, or one of his early bosses, Supreme Court Justice Byron White, was that you listen, and that you respect other people's views, and that you are willing to be challenged, and that you're willing to grow in the process. And frankly, in many cases, you're willing to come to a firmer belief in what you already understand to be true because you've had a chance to get into the ring and to debate it out and to work it through. So, it's just so sad. And by the way, on these people throwing books away, how about let's get rid of those books when the new books become so popular that there's no room on the library shelves anymore for the old ones because everybody wants to read them. When we took high school literature classes, I refused to read anything they assigned. My assumption was if they are making me read it, it must suck. And so therefore, I was not going to read it. Now, years later, I picked up some of those books and read them and thought, hey, these are pretty good. I wonder what else they were trying to get me to read that was actually good. And I think what the left is now trying to do is to bring to fruition my assumption about literature in high school.
Yeah. Hey, Bill, if I can throw something in just real quick.
Absolutely.
Your question to Scott just reminded me of some film literature, if that's a word, but Stanley Kubrick nailed it. You can't speak in here, gentlemen. This is the conversation.
You can't fight in here. This is the war room. Let me address both of these twits backwards. So we'll start with the conversation banning opinions. He goes on to say that our decision to ban climate change deniers from commenting on our site and so on, the media has a responsibility to stop them. The job of the media is to stop other opinions. That's what the modern left thinks. So just as a quick little thought experiment, let's take two theses. One of them is that the Earth is flat, and the other one is that man-made emissions are causing the destruction of the planet. Well, I've listened to the people make the case for the Earth is flat, and then I've heard the rebuttals to why people think that the Earth is actually round. And the rebuttals utterly and completely destroy the flat Earth theory. And I've heard rebuttals to the climate change people that utterly demolished the climate change theory as well. And I will tell you one thing, the arguments that are being made against climate change are on 4 or 5 orders of magnitude more complex, more scientific, more detailed, most importantly, more quantified with numbers. But if all of this stuff is so obvious, then you would think, if you really did believe that climate change is about to cause us all a premature death, you would think that the more people talked about it, the more your position would get stronger. This is why I'm not afraid to debate any of these people, because they got nothing. They ain't got nothing. So much for you and your conversation. It's a conversation between ourselves. It's the nice thing about the left, when you go to the left, if you're reading a site like The Conversation, you get exposed to the entire spectrum of political thought from far left on one side to extreme left on the other. And that's just plain. It's not only sloppiness, it's not only laziness, it's cowardice. Now, for Melissa Barnett, who is applauding a dumpster, two dumpsters full of books that are being carted out of a library, I would say this. In order to have the kind of personality that celebrates any books being removed or destroyed, doesn't matter what they are, doesn't matter who they say, anybody who has an opinion that celebrates this has a personality type that's rather unusual. And the personality type that comes to mind when I think of people like this is Joseph Goebbels, because Goebbels did not see books or knowledge at all in terms of knowledge. And he saw everything in terms of politics for an ideology that had to be absolutely dominated so that people could swallow it. And that ideology is German Workers' National Socialist Workers, for God's sakes, I use it, NASDAP, Nazism, the German Socialist Workers' Party. It's interesting to me, I don't normally go here, but looking at her picture in her Twitter profile, there's a marked resemblance between her and Joseph Goebbels. And I just wonder if that's a coincidence or maybe it's something else that we just throw in the trash and cart on out of here. But Melissa, I went there because you deserve it. You really do. You're celebrating books being taken out of a library as if there's only so much knowledge that a library can hold, as if the library size was determined in advance, and in order for new books to be taken in, old books must be thrown out. Celebrating the destruction of anything, whether it's a good book or a bad book, whether I agree with it or not, whether it's trash or whether it's a masterpiece, celebrating this is the sign of a totalitarian fascist, and that's exactly what you are. And I'm sorry if you don't know it, but if you were to read some of the books on the way out the door before they get to the dumpster, you'll find out exactly why you're a totalitarian fascist and why you need to be fought tooth and nail by people who care about ideas and learning and things like that. That'll do it for this edition of Right Angle, brought to you by the extraordinarily intelligent, and I might add extremely good-looking people too, who are the members at BillWhittle.com. They don't agree on everything. They're not supposed to. We have enthusiastic discussions about issues in our comment section. We have members producing commentary and comments and even videos that are absolutely astonishing. And if you feel like you're all alone out there and you want to have a good argument with people who know how to argue, then BillWhittle.com is the place for you. No, it isn't. Yes, it is. No, it isn't. We'll see you next week on Right Angle.